Jai Hind everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel, which is Explore Yourselves, Banking and General Knowledge, etc. From Mailroom to Corner Office, A Banker's Journey by Dr. R. Srinivasan. This is the cover page of the book. Today, that is 15 July 2025, I am sharing episode 13. These are the YouTube links of episode 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are for the next 4 episodes, which are episode 5, 6, 7, and 8. And these are for the next 4 episodes, episode 9, 10, 11, and 12. The chapter Back to Banking continuing. Now, in this episode, subchapter will be Andhra Bank, Hyderabad, continuing. Back to Banking, Andhra Bank, Hyderabad. It might be recalled that June 6, 1966 was the day on which the independent India devalued its currency for the first time. An interesting episode while in Hyderabad was that the bank had a branch in Cuttack, Odisha, and the late T.S. Sarma was the manager. He sent a request to head office requesting some higher official to visit Cuttack and Bhubaneswar to meet government officials to solicit new business. When this matter was discussed at a high level meeting, I learned that the vice chairman, who also had his office in the same building, did not approve of the person suggested but asked the general manager to send me instead. He was aware that I was much junior to Mr. Sharma but still wanted the office to depute me. I had no reason to think whether it was an attempt to make a sacrificial goat of me if the trip turned out to be a failure instead of a really senior person. Once my travel was approved, I contacted Mr. Sharma and asked him what I should do. He just said, "Come along, bring some Hyderabad grapes if you can." I bought about 40 kilos of grapes and paid the excess baggage. As soon as I landed in the afternoon, Mr. Sarma and I made about 30 packets of these grapes and went about distributing them among some of the bureaucrats in Bhubaneswar. Next day, we called on them and solicited business. Most unexpectedly, we got the account of Orissa Mining Corporation with lot of business in foreign exchange apart from a very huge deposit potential. The success of my maiden trip to Odisha to acquire government business and support surpassed everyone's expectations. This paved the way for my getting special recognition from the management of the bank and an unexpected promotion. I remember very vividly how I was woken up by a senior officer of the bank at about 10 p.m. to inform me that I was promoted to a special grade. There were only 5 or 6 officers in the special grade. How lucky I was! Shortly thereafter, during December 1967, social control over banks was introduced as a compromise between those demanding nationalization and those who were opposed to that idea. Other than my achievements in my new role, our new life in Hyderabad was smooth. We lived within our means and unfailingly remitted some amount of money every month to support my parents in Madras. We used to see some movies, go to listen to music in Ravindra Bharati, eat out once in a while, and visit a temple occasionally. We also cultivated friendship with the families of some of my colleagues. One such person was Mr. K. Narayanamurthy, KN, who was attached to the general manager as his personal assistant. His brother's daughter Pramila, who also worked in our bank. Sometimes we would all go to a music concert or a movie together. KN spoke Tamil well, although he is a Telugu speaking Brahmin. He was a good company for us and continues to be even so now. On every New Year's Day, he used to accompany me to the houses of our GM, AGMs, and Mr. Ramchar, vice chairman of the bank, to greet them. One weekend, we decided to go on a picnic to a place called Nagarjuna Sagar, about 100 miles from Hyderabad. This place was known for a huge dam built across a river to harness water. It was a relatively hot day, and having left home in the morning, we reached our destination by about the afternoon around lunchtime. We had lunch and wanted to take a rest after the tedious journey. When I woke up after the siesta, I felt an irritation in both my eyes. They were red, and I could not see the sunlight. We did not know what to do next. We decided to return to Hyderabad immediately, and by the time we reached the city, it was almost 7 p.m. On our way home, there was an eye clinic, and we stopped to consult the doctor. After examination, the doctor told me that there was an infection, and he prescribed an ointment and asked me to wear dark glasses. The next morning, the situation was worse, and this caused some anxiety. We found out that a Dr. Ranji, who had his clinic nearby Secunderabad, was a better doctor. My friend Narayana Murthy took me there. I was thoroughly examined after dilation, which took nearly an hour. Finally, it was diagnosed that both my eyes were severely affected with measles, but luckily the cornea was not yet infected. Dr. Ranji prescribed some strong medicines for application in the eyes and advised that I should confine myself to a darkened room, avoid sunlight, wear dark glasses, and keep the eye closed as much as possible. His only concession was to visit his clinic as per direction, and that too with my eyes closed during the travel from my house to his clinic and back. During the next 43 days, I remained inside my house, almost keeping my eyes continuously closed. Our windows were pasted with black paper so that no light came in. Shrikant, who was a small baby at this time, used to hold my hand and take me to the bathroom. Narayana Murthy was regularly visiting me and taking me to Dr. Ranji on his scooter. Luckily, this ordeal was over nearly 2 months, except that I needed to wear glasses as my vision had been slightly affected. In 1968, Andhra Bank decided to send one of their officers to overseas training for about 6 months in West Germany with Deutsche Bank and then on to United Kingdom with Westminster Bank. I came to find out much later that the board seriously considered the name of a very senior executive for this deputation, but the chairman and the vice chairman were of the view that due to the success of my Orissa visit and my heading the foreign exchange department of the bank, it would be proper to send me for the training. This was something that I never expected. The board also took the decision that when I returned from training, I would be promoted to the rank of assistant general manager of the bank. One of the conditions of the deputation was that I should sign an agreement with them to return after the training and serve the bank for a minimum of 5 years. If I failed to do so, the entire cost incurred by the bank for my training would be refunded to them by me. My mother, who had been staying with us for some time in Hyderabad, was very apprehensive about my going abroad. She was worried that I wouldn't come back and that I would start eating non vegetarian food and would possibly acquire a foreign wife too. At that time, the Paramacharya Jagadguru H. Sankaracharya of Kanchi Peetham was camping in the Swarajaya Press compound in Secunderabad, popularly known as the Twin City of Hyderabad. My mother took me to him and sought his blessings for my safe travel and return. His Holiness said that he would not approve of Brahmins crossing the seas, and therefore it may not be proper for us to seek his blessings. When we expressed our helplessness and he asked as to what we should do in the circumstances, he said that I should do as I wished. Subsequently, my mother took me to H.H. Srimad Andavan, Tirukundathai Kundanthai Andavan, and expressed her apprehensions about my travel plan and sought his blessings. His Holiness gave us blessings and said that everything would be fine. This was my first trip abroad. As I needed to spend 3 months in West Germany, I was expected to acquire some basic working knowledge of the German language. For this purpose, I had joined the Goethe Institute at the Max Mueller Bhavan, Hyderabad. The excitement of traveling abroad was uppermost in my mind, and the bank was kind enough to give me some advance money to equip myself with the necessary clothing, etc. I had borrowed a dressing and a bath gown from another colleague in the bank, Mr. Paparaju, and bought some winter clothing in Madras. I think it was in the first week of June 1968 that I was able to complete all the formalities and leave for Hamburg in West Germany. I was so excited about my first ever visit abroad that at the time of heading for the departure gate, I totally forgot to take leave of my wife and sons and my father in law who came to see me off. I may add that in all our family and including extended family, I was the first person to go abroad. It was a difficult time for my wife who was carrying our third child. I traveled by Lufthansa from Madras to Hamburg via Beirut and Dusseldorf. Beirut was only a stopover for a few hours. At that time, the Lebanese capital was under bombardment, and I could hear bombs bursting here and there across the city. Eventually, I reached Hamburg at 7 p.m., one of the three places where Deutsche Bank had its central offices. After waiting for a considerable length of time for the arrival of my luggage, I was told that my bag was mistakenly sent to London when I changed plane at Dusseldorf. Except for the clothes I was wearing, I had nothing else with me. Lufthansa gave me toothpaste, a brush, and a shaving kit. They assured me that they would trace my bag and get it delivered to the guest house where I was staying. Although I only went through the basic tuition in German language as a minimum preparation for the training, I was still unable to converse with the airline staff there effectively. Hats off to Lufthansa. At 11 p.m., they delivered my bag to the Herman J. Abb's house, where trainees from India were housed. Due to the long flight and changing planes en route, I was feeling very giddy and could not steady myself. I was pleasantly surprised to see some senior bankers from India who had arrived earlier for the same training that I was due to undergo. Some names that I can recall even now are Shri P.N. Khanna, Chief Officer of RBI, DBOD, Shri B.G. Savanal, Joint Controller Exchange Control Department, RBI, Shri C.S. Kalyana Sundaram, who later became MD, SBI, Shri T. Shanmugam, who became MD, SBI, Shri Dibankar Basu, who later became the chairman of SBI, Shri Padmanabhan, who became CGM, SB of Indore, and Shri Lakshmi Narayan from Syndicate Bank, who became the chairman of that bank for a short while. I'm sure I have missed some names. All these persons took pity on me in my weakened condition, helped me to eat some vegetarian food, and gave me some medicine to relieve me of my giddiness. Savanal gave me his pajamas to wear for the night. Hamburg, being in North Hemisphere and close to North Pole, the days were very long. Even at 12 midnight, we could still read without any electric light. Sleep eluded me for several days while I was there, and I was not aware that it was due to jet lag. I will not write much about the training as it was fairly routine, but I must write about the bank, the people, the city, the guest house we were housed in, and how we spent our time there. To describe the guest house in one sentence, I must say that it was absolutely clean in every aspect. The toilets were so clean that I would not have hesitated to go ahead and sleep on the floor there. Bed, breakfast, and lunch were freely provided. One morning we found a gentleman at breakfast who was getting the full attention and respect from the waiters. Later we learned that the person was Herman J. Abbs himself, the chairman of Deutsche Bank. He was absolutely without any airs and very simple. He moved around and made inquiries about us and the names of the banks we came from. The bank also gave each one of us a stipend of DM, for 4 Deutschmark per month, while other banks provided some additional exchange to their officers on training. Andhra Bank made me learn to live within the stipend given by the host bank. But that was certainly not part of the for which I was deputed. Each of us was expected to send a weekly report of the training we underwent and devised an excellent way to meet this requirement. Apart from the fact that my handwriting was good, I was able to understand why and how certain things were done in a department and explain it in the notes. I was therefore the writer of the reports. After my reports were completed every week, it was also my job to take as many copies as were required to help my teammates send the report to their banks. My friends would not waste their time to read and correct my manuscript, but would promptly dispatch them to their offices. Perhaps they suspected that no one at the other end would bother to read them. The most enjoyable experience of this whole tour was that all of us used to move like a team. We would go out together and return together. I was the youngest and perhaps most junior of us. I therefore voluntarily took the job of washing clothes of other trainees who in turn used to do cooking for each night. For dinner, we would buy vegetables on our way back home from the office. We got there and back each day by walking leisurely, window shopping on the way. During the weekends, we visited Denmark and Oslo. Travel to those places had their own thrills and experiences. At our request, Deutsche Bank also arranged for our visiting their offices in Frankfurt and Dusseldorf. During one of the weekends of travel, Mr. P. N. Khanna, the chief officer of DBOD of RBI, and I branched off, and the two of us went to Paris. That happened to be July 14, the French Republic Day. It was raining. We saw the President de Gaulle taking salute and the parade. We visited many landmarks of Paris. At 11 p.m., it took us almost an hour to cross a road of only 50 feet due to heavy traffic, even at that time of the night. Maybe it was a business strategy for Deutsche Bank to take care of us as though we were the sons-in-law of that bank and made us feel so comfortable for our lifetime we would not think of supporting any other bank, any other German bank. There were two other competing banks, Dresdner and Commerce, but Deutsche Bank won our hearts hands down. Till this date, I have remained loyal to them and still consider them as the best German bank. After 3 months in German cities, I went to London for a further 3 months training in Westminster Bank that later became a part of the National Provincial Bank and came to be known as the National Westminster Bank. Many of my other colleagues had returned home from Germany and did not accompany me. In London, there was no guest house arrangement. I had become a member of the YMCA while in Hyderabad and with a view to get admission to stay there in their hostel in London at concessionary rates allowed to their members. The YMCA London was known as Indian YMCA, situate in 41 Fitzroy Square, W1. At the airport, I hired a taxi and the driver was good enough to take me to YMCA without any hassle. As I got out in front of the YMCA building and paid the fare as per the meter and was about to enter the building, I heard the taxi driver cursing me bloody Indians but because I did not tip him. First of all, I never knew that I had to tip the taxi driver, and having earned his insult, I did not want to go back and give him a bonus. I saved the money and learned a first lesson in UK. In August 2011, I went to London and stayed with my eldest son, who was with the Citibank there. One afternoon, I went to the same YMCA along with my daughter-in-law and narrated her this episode of the taxi driver berating me for my frugality. The YMCA Indian hostel was mainly meant for Indians visiting the UK. They charged for bed, breakfast, and dinner. I had a room to myself, but the bath and toilets were communal. All activities there were on time. If you were late, you missed your entitlement. As all of you know, the London Tube network is famous, world famous, and a well run service. I bought season ticket for traveling up and down to the office. I could get off at any station at any number of times a day and reboard the train at will. I became an expert in the routes and I was available for any visitor from India who needed someone to guide them. On subsequent visits to UK after I became a bit more important in the banking industry, I had the luxury of a car with a driver. In London, at the time of my first visit, Barclays, Lloyds, and Midland were the other big banks. There was another trainee from India called Mr. H. S. Srinivasan from Indian Overseas Bank who was also staying at the YMCA, and we became friends. As he was there before me, he knew the city better and was my guide. Mr. Dibankar Basu from SBI, who later became chairman of SBI, was also at the YMCA, but he was a gentleman and rarely mixed with mortals like us. I came close to him many years later. I became chairman of a bank much earlier, and he was much junior to me when he became chairman of SBI. Thereafter, he has been friendly and cordial to me. Even now, he greets me as Dada, and I repeat the same salutations to him, adding Basumoshai. We like each other. Training at Westminster Bank was a bit more comfortable mainly because the official language of the bank and banking industry in India was similar to that used in the British banking practices. Yet, staff in the UK bank were not as knowledgeable as our staff in India. For instance, one day I saw a clerk in the bills department just doing the job of rubber stamping with the bills and writing continuous numbers. It was a OBC section, outward bills for collection. I asked the clerk to explain to me the work she was doing. She said that her job was to stamp and write numbers. I asked her what she meant by OBC, but she did not know. I explained to her what a bill meant and what OBC stood for. In effect, I became a trainer instead of a trainee. Training was in name only, and frankly, I learned precious little. However, my reports were promptly sent to the bank. Meantime, with the social control of banks and as Mr. T.R. Bhagwat was superannuating, the bank brought in Mr. K. Gopal Rao as chairman. He was assistant general manager in the Bank of Baroda. Maybe because he was a Telugu speaking banker, he was brought in. Andhra Bank had on its board a very powerful director called Mr. K.L.N. Prasad Kanuri. He was Congress MP and was responsible for Mr. Gopal Rao's appointment. Mr. Gopal Rao was a tough taskmaster. He worked very hard and expected everyone to work equally hard. He read my reports and wrote back his comments and asked me to concentrate on certain aspects of banking and reporting. His appreciation of my reports encouraged me. Lunch in the bank was subsidized, which Mr. H.S. Srinivas, who was deputed to Midland Bank by his bank, was my guide in this matter too. One day he would take me to his bank for lunch, and on another day he would come to my bank. On the third day, we would both go to a third bank where he knew where the canteen was, and we would visit as though we were trainees there. In this manner, our friendship grew and training time was utilized. While I was in London, my third son was born on November 15, 1968. In the absence of email and the internet in those days, it took a few days for me to get the letter from my wife and father-in-law about the birth of the child. As we already had two sons, there was some disappointment that the child was not a girl. Then a few years from then, the child would sneak through those letters and ask us whether he was a disappointment for us. Frankly, except that we had a male child while expecting a girl child, until this date he never made us feel short of any expectation of affection and love from him. We are blessed that our three sons vie with each other and showering their affection on us. So do their wives and children. London, with its historical connections with India, had many places to see and we did not miss anything. Thus, the 3 months training in UK also came to a close. I was getting homesick and was anxious to return to my family before the severe winter set in. I wanted to be with my wife and the newborn. I have never been comfortable in winter, and this continues to this day. It was time to go home. I duly reported back at the head office in Hyderabad in December 1968. I was expecting that I would be promoted to assistant general manager of the bank, but Mr. Gopal Rao did not honor the commitment to the bank's earlier board. He said that he would take a decision and would not be bound by the earlier ruling of the board. I was very unhappy. Added to this, he wanted me to immediately take up the job of getting all small scale advances covered under the credit guarantee system. This warranted traveling to the interior of Andhra Pradesh, mostly semi-urban ranches, and completing this job within a short space of time. I must mention here that this job was not done before in the bank and had therefore become urgent work. I was reluctant to take up this assignment as I had never handled this type of activity in the bank and knew nothing about it apart from a reluctance to go straight from London to the interiors of Andhra Pradesh, where even toilet facilities were rarely available, let alone a choice of food. I have been experienced in handling foreign exchange business and never done any domestic banking. As mentioned earlier, during the time I was out of India, Andhra Bank witnessed a change at the top. The full-time chief executive, who was the general manager, was replaced by a new incumbent, Mr. Gopal Rao. During the same time, the banking industry in India also went through an upheaval. Banks were brought under social control under the pretext of extending credit to weaker sections of society. The managements of banks now fell under the very strict control of Reserve Bank of India. Gopal Rao became chairman of the bank and he brought along with him a new general manager and an assistant general manager. No doubt Gopal Rao engineered a lot of improvement in the working of the bank, imparted dynamism, expanded the branch network, and proved to be a ruthlessly effective administrator. While he appreciated my reports sent from Germany and UK, he said that he would not honor the arrangements of the board of directors that when I would return from overseas, I would be elevated to the position of AGM. Contrary to my expectations, instead of utilizing my services in the field of specialization with foreign exchange, he wanted me to take up the job of visiting remote villages and rural branches of the bank in Andhra Pradesh to get them included in the credit guarantee scheme. This was an area of the bank's business that I was not at all familiar with. I was bold to convey my unsuitability to take up the assignment and told him that I would not be able to achieve the result he wanted. This I did not did through the AGM, Shri K. S. Sastri, who was respected by Mr. Gopal Rao. This resulted in my transfer back to Madras and a posting as officer in charge foreign department at the Madras main branch. It was a great disappointment to me and to my family, but we had no choice. I therefore accepted the transfer and moved out of Hyderabad and back to Madras with my family. Luckily, we decided not to return to the joint family arrangement with my parents, and the credit for this should go to Sulochana. We found a separate place to live, to which we moved later. The city of Madras was at that time experiencing severe shortage of water and other essential commodities. Our second and third sons, Shrikant and Shivats, were not in good health. Doctors diagnosed their conditions as that of primary complex, which was a form of tuberculosis. This required an almost daily visit to the doctor for streptomycin antibiotic injections for both of the kids. Luckily, we had a doctor very close to our residence, Dr. Sori Rajan, who treated them. It was a difficult time for us. To store water, we had to wake up at 3 or 3:30 in the morning and pump water from a bore well. I did not know how we managed the situation, and I should give entire credit to Sulochana for managing the affairs without my deeply getting involved. To facilitate going to school for my first and second sons, we shifted our residence to Dr. Nayar Road. It was definitely a better living place, but we moved out of the place after a short while. We finally moved into 6 Trimurti Street, T Nagar, Madras, 17. This was a flat on the first floor of the house and was independent, and it was convenient for many reasons. We were happy that with this change of address. However, the disappointment of not getting the expected promotion continued to linger in me. Poonam, about whom I had mentioned earlier, had in the meantime left Andhra Bank and joined the Oriental Bank of Commerce in Bombay. He was working as the second man in the main branch of that bank. His boss was Mr. Sood, and the head office of the bank was in New Delhi. There were three similar sized banks with headquarters in New Delhi, and they were the New Bank of India, the Oriental Bank of Commerce, and Punjab and Sindh Bank. They were all promoted by Punjabis. The third one was predominantly a bank for and by Sardars Sikhs. The new Bank of India Limited was originally founded by M.R. Kohli in Lahore, and after the partition of the country it moved to New Delhi. That bank was doing all kinds of business but was not dealing in foreign exchange, for which specific permission and a license from RBI were required. Such permissions were granted by RBI only after it was fully satisfied that the bank was well equipped to handle the business, and particularly with a proper person to head the department and handle this specialized job. Poonam knew me as the one who had organized the department of Andhra Bank and that I had overseas training, and he suggested my name to the responsible persons in New Bank of India through his boss Sood. It might be recalled that during the overseas training I had in my group some of the senior officials of RBI who also mattered in granting the permission of New Bank of India. All of these circumstances coincided, and I was called to Bombay to meet the chairman of New Bank of India, New Delhi, for an interview. Poonam took me to that bank for the interview, Mr. T.R. Tuli, who was the chairman, and Mr. Kalyan Prakash, the regional manager, interviewed me and offered me the job. When compared to Andhra Bank, New Bank of India was smaller. Poonam took me to the house of Mr. A.R. Murthy, who was second man in Bombay to Mr. Kalyan Prakash. Murthy was in the midst of a celebration in his house and was at lunch with all his relatives who had come for the function. He invited Poonam and I to join the lunch, and afterwards we discussed the offer and sought his opinion about joining the New Bank of India. He felt that I should favorably consider the offer. During the discussion with the chairman, I was told that they would offer me a position that would be almost on par with the general manager, but I would be called a controller, foreign exchange. Emoluments wise, the package offered was attractive, but more than anything else, I could not get rid of the feeling that Andhra Bank had not honored the pledge of promoting me when I was returned from overseas training. So after returning to Madras and after consulting with my wife and others, I accepted the offer. It was 1971. It may be recalled that in 1969, Government of India had nationalized 14 banks whose deposits were more than rupees 50 crores. New Bank of India escaped this as their deposits were less than the stipulated rupees 50 crores. When I submitted my resignation to Andhra Bank, Gopal Rao, the chairman, did not relish it. He was furious that I was undergoing the training overseas at the bank's expense and I was leaving their services. To prevent me from doing so, he reminded me of the agreement that I had signed for before going abroad. It said that I should serve the bank for a minimum period of 5 years after my return, failing which the entire expenses incurred would be reimbursed by me. I had completed a little over 2.5 years of service after my return from abroad, and so I pleaded with the bank to accept 50% of the expenses and relieve me. Gopal Rao refused and insisted on my honoring the agreement strictly. Having gone thus far, both Sulochana and I felt that there was no point in going back and agreed to forego the entire expenses amounting to rupees 11,000 from our terminal benefits receivable from the bank. Accordingly, I was relieved from my job on July 26, 1971. I decided to join the new Bank of India on August 4, 1971. The chapter Back to Banking, Andhra Bank, Hyderabad completed. Next chapter will be New Bank of India, New Delhi. Thank you very much for your patience. Please like and share this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel.